Good afternoon, I'm Bill Anderson, coming here live from the Costa del Sol. Absolutely delighted that I can be joined today by someone I've known for a number of years who is a local businesswoman here in La Cala. Sarah, welcome to Expat Radio.
Thank you, Bill. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine. Yeah, I'm working from a PC, so it's very easy to see all the controls. But when you're working on your mobile phone, it's sometimes a bit more difficult to see where everything is, isn't it?
It is that simple swipe of in the settings of turning the microphone on to this particular app.
Right.
It's something that I thought, here we go. So sorry about that, listeners.
But these are the joys of doing things live, Sarah.
They are indeed. And I had planned to get back to sit in front of my PC, but the morning dictated otherwise, you know, when the universe works slightly against you. So if there's a little background noise, I do apologise.
Mornings do have a habit of doing that to us, don't they? They sort of have a life of their own.
Yes, definitely.
Sarah, welcome to Expat Radio. We're going to talk a little bit about yourself first. Where are your roots, Sarah?
My roots would be sort of divided between Lancashire and Yorkshire.
Right.
Because I was actually born just inside the Lancashire border, but spent the rest of my life in the Yorkshire area.
Right.
So an area called Saddleworth.
I don't know Saddleworth. I know bits of Yorkshire fairly well, but I don't know Saddleworth exactly.
It's fairly famous for characters such as Ian Brady and Moira Hindley.
Ah, right. Okay. Yes, of course, the moor. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the best thing to be remembered for, is it?
Not particularly, no, not particularly. But the villages in the Saddleworth area, like Denshaw, Diggle, Delph, Upper Mill, all around there, they're full of character.
Right. So those are your early roots, Sarah. When you were, first of all, I'm going to ask you, how long have you been here in Spain?
24 years.
Oh, you beat me by 2 years.
Came in 2000.
Yeah. So in the UK, what did you dedicate your time to, Sarah?
Once I'd finished school, I left school at 16 because I didn't want to go to university. I wanted to go straight to work.
Right.
My life, I've been very fortunate that from the age of 7, I'd started to ride, and I'd been competing in show jumping.
Right.
And it was a bit more than a hobby. It got quite serious.
Mm-hmm.
So all the way through until I was about 16, I was on ponies, and then I was on, as a young rider, I was tall as 14 years old. You can go into what they call the young rider classes between 14 and 16.
Right.
And obviously you go into full senior classes after that. But obviously the rules have changed since, so things move on. But yes, I was blessed in the fact that I had a very fortunate start, thanks to my parents.
Right.
In the world of horses.
Right, yeah, and we will come to a connection with your horses and Mijas later on, but we did have a racetrack. Just to let people know, we did have a racetrack here in Mijas. Did that influence at all your coming to this part of Spain, Sarah?
Yes, completely.
Right.
Did. Yes, completely. My husband and I, we got together. He was also of the equestrian world, and his business was, he was a constructor, and he specialised in, I would say, restoration of properties and installing equestrian facilities and things like that.
Right.
So our paths crossed from a very early age. I met him when I was 7 years old. I knew him. I've known him since I was 7 years old.
Right. Yeah.
And I knew his first wife because the horsey fraternity is quite tight knit.
Sure.
So your paths cross a lot, you know. So, but we all have a fantastic carry on. We all get on fantastic, and it's Yeah, it's thanks to horses.
Right. So, just, we moved to Spain at a time where it was very easy in many ways to move to Spain. You just made the decision, you went and registered, and that was you here, yeah? How has, you moved to this area because of the development of the racetrack, the horse track. But what's your experience of the area, horses aside for the moment? Can you describe to people what this area means to you?
Okay, well, the reason why we came, yes, was to train at the race course, but we'd always said that we would like to live in Spain half and half. So
Right.
if we were lucky enough, obviously at the end of the day, to make enough that it was going to be comfortable to live 6 months in the UK and 6 months in Spain, that would have suited us great. So when we had on the horizon, we used to come and stay down near Estepona, and we'd always had this idea that, yes, we wanted to spend some of our life in Spain because of the lifestyle, because of the weather, because of the pace of life being a little bit different to the UK. The weather's a huge factor.
Yeah, it sounds very superficial, Sarah, doesn't it? Like, the weather. But it's what having generally all year round good weather allows you to do.
Allows you to do exactly that. Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And I also think, the vitamin D aspect that people sort of have casually mentioned, through the years. I think people are actually realising you'll know yourself when you go home to the UK and you see friends and family, they don't quite look as bright in the skin as people do here, and that's nothing to do with having a tan.
No, listen, Sarah. When on occasions we've gone back to Scotland, either in like December or March, everybody looks grey.
Yes.
They look grey because they haven't seen the sun for 6 months.
No, and it's got to link back to the vitamin D, surely.
Yeah, and I think for those of us that have been here a long time, we're not generally sun worshippers. If anything, we spend a lot of our time avoiding the sun. But
That's very true.
You get it naturally just by being out and about, don't you?
Yes, you do. You do. I mean, my husband pleads with me to go out on the terrace on a Saturday afternoon after I finish work, and I don't mind if I go out. I don't mind kind of going out about 4 till 6.
Right.
When it's sort of this time of the year, because it's too intense.
Sure.
Unless you're on the beach, and then it's more refreshing down on the beach.
Yeah, but it's deceiving at the same time.
Yes. Very, very sneaky. You can get very sneakily burnt on the beach.
Well, we're kind of early in the real holiday season at the moment, but within about 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to see people wandering the streets looking like well-cooked prawns.
Yes, it's called the lobster look.
Yeah, so it's quite funny when we go out to a cafe or something. Vicky and I are always looking for a table with shade. Yes. And sometimes we just won't go to a cafe if there are no tables with shade. But you see others clearly on holiday who want to sort of soak in every ounce of ultraviolet ray that they can while they're here.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
they're like, "Oh, I'm not sitting here. There's no sun,"
No. But it's unless you've lived in a hot climate, I think that's when you get the true respect for the sun.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you've been here 24 years. Your love of horses was a big influence on why you chose this part of Spain. And I did mention that we had, past tense, a racetrack here in Mijas. Do we still have one?
We have a skeleton of one.
Yeah,
we have a skeleton of one. But it's a long story that both yourself and I know well enough, Bill, that unfortunately it's tangled in in the world of politics, and until there is somebody that wants to carry the beacon and unravel it, it will remain like quite a lot of things here, wrapped up.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily interest people to know what happened, and I'm not even sure if we know exactly what happened. But it was a very popular venue. Now, I'm not just talking about for people like yourselves that had horses, but it was a very popular venue, a great sort of social setting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Obviously, with the marketing being so poor, you would rely on the local grapevine.
Yeah.
Which down on the Costa del Sol is, I would say, fairly efficient.
Yes.
And certainly with social media and the way that everything works on those platforms, the awareness of things is much more reachable a lot quicker.
Sure.
So I think actually in its favour, if it ever came back, then social media would be a big asset. Now, going back to the sort of people certainly were keen to go because it was a different thing to do. People were keen to go because they had an interest in racing. People were keen to go because they liked going to the bars. And when you add up the kind of totals that we used to get, and when you hear people say the white elephant, it was this, it was that, you don't get between 5,000 and 8,000 people on a Saturday night or a Friday night, whenever the races were, because they used to alternate night racing and the day racing. You don't get that if people aren't interested.
Yeah. Yeah, well, putting things into context, Sarah, when I moved here, my late wife and I moved here 2002, we need to remember that, we didn't have smartphones.
No.
I didn't have internet in my house. It took about 6 or 7 years for me to get workable internet in my house. So it was a very different world. And as you say, things depended in those days on the grapevine.
Yes, definitely. And I think it would be definitely different today, with that marketing tool.
Sure.
But we are in Spain. We are guests. We can only suggest what might work, what might not work. And when it comes down to it, it's the Spanish that makes the decisions. Yeah. Albeit that we, as an expat community, are a much bigger voice, I think, than we ever were.
Sure.
And I think because of the investment that the expats bring to this region and every other region where expats occupy, I think that we have that right.
Yeah.
In the most polite way, I mean. I think we have that right to be consulted.
Yeah, you see, I'm a bit more brutal than you are, Sarah.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm an immigrant to Spain, but
me too.
They were quite happy for me to come here and work and pay my taxes, and my income tax, my local taxes, and all of that. And I think, we're more like paying guests. I think, being a guest in someone's house, living there for free is one thing. You maybe can't be too picky about what they serve for dinner,
No.
But I think when you're somewhere as a paying guest, I'm a bit more brutal and say, no, we do have rights. Technically, although we may not be able to vote, for example, in national elections or regional elections, we can vote locally. And I think that in itself gives us the right to say, look, this is how we want our money spent. This is what we would like to see done. And I'm not at all apologetic about it.
Well, I can understand why, Bill. But I think at the end of the day, the Spanish will do what the Spanish see fit. And it's up to us to find the I would say manoeuvres,
right.
polite manoeuvres that can persuade them to go in a sensible with a
Yeah.
sensible approach, you know,
Yeah.
because sometimes when you get, I always liked it when I moved here to those cowboy movies where, you know, the guy at the end of the tiller, you know, he used to pull the blind down and it said closed.
Yes.
And it didn't matter how long you'd been waiting and how important it was for you.
Yeah.
It was closed. It was lunchtime and it was closed. And that I still think is here. That element is here.
I think you're right. And the other thing that I'm very aware of, and even though I spent 4 years as a local councillor, is what I would just call the lack of transparency. You know, they will quite happily say, we have plans, but they won't tell you what those plans are.
No.
and then you discover, after it's all been put into practice, you discover afterwards what it was they were going to do. And you say, if they had told me this 6 months ago
Yes.
and explained it, then I would have had some suggestions for them to take on board. But I find... I know my concept of transparency and the Spanish concept of transparency are not quite in sync, you know.
Not quite. No, not quite.
Yeah, and even as a local councillor, I very often found out things from social media that I should have been informed about in a council meeting.
You mean you didn't pick up the leaflet that said on a need-to-know basis?
Oh, I'm glad to see you have a bit of cynicism there as well. So, what you know, we mentioned the weather, Sarah, but you know, can you describe for people, because we've got at the moment 66 countries listening in. You know, how would you describe life in this part of Spain? And just to say where we are exactly, we're in Mijas, which if you were to fly on the south coast to Malaga Airport and travel for about 40 kilometers west, you hit Mijas. We're kind of halfway between Fuengirola and Marbella. Well, you know, can you describe for people how you see life down here? You said a bit more relaxed and nice weather.
Yeah, it's, how can I say? I think there are areas across the Costa del Sol where people's lives differ. Some people are, they have a routine similar to what they have in the UK. Some people, I think, that are obviously retired. We have such a mixed bunch of retired people, people who are working, people who've started a business, such as myself, and I think people who, this digital nomad kind of section as well,
Yeah.
where people are working from home, so they're supporting a business elsewhere, but they've applied for a visa. So the whole sort of demographic is getting a reshuffle.
Sure.
But I think in general terms, you will definitely find, like the people in Mijas, I find that they've really got their feet on the ground.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. There's a kind of I don't know, unspoken language that when you're in and maybe, oh, where do you live? Oh, I live in Mijas. I live up so and so, whatever. And you know you're going to have a sensible conversation with them.
Right.
If you go to, I don't know, let's say we're heading towards Puerto Banús.
Yes.
It's a completely different animal.
Yes, it
Completely
is.
different.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes unkindly say that the Costa del Sol is not real Spain, because it is so international.
Yes.
But I have to say, you know, when you move from Mijas to somewhere like, and people all over the world will probably know Marbella, Puerto Banús, it is, I mean, if this isn't real Spain, you can't even describe these sort of areas.
It's an amazing playground. Amazing
That's
international
it.
playground.
Yeah.
And it will appeal to so many people that are curious to see how that type of lifestyle is. I mean, it's fascinating. If you park your car up in the port and pay double what you would do in Mijas, and you wander around and have a drink and just watch the world go by, see the yachts come in, see the beautiful people. It's fascinating. Who wouldn't be curious?
It's a great place for people watching.
Oh, it's wonderful for people watching.
But I recall, now, this must have been 20 years ago. Mind that, 20 years ago, taking a trip down to Puerto Banús, and we went down to the port and sat in it wasn't a posh cafe, and had a small beer, and then getting charged €5 for a small beer.
Yeah.
And being a Scotsman, you're a Yorkshire woman, so you know.
I'm a Yorkshire woman, yeah.
And it's like, no, I don't think so. I don't know what it costs now for a small beer in that place, but it is, as you say, it's like an international playground, and.
But there are nuggets of gold down there, quite literally.
Yeah.
I'll tell you where I was on when England played the other night.
Yeah.
I went to the new venue that La Sala in Banús have created. It's an annex to their existing restaurant, and it's called the Clubhouse.
Right.
Now the Clubhouse offers a membership. Obviously, it's full of sporting people in that area of, I would say, the Premier Division.
Right.
And all the sort of the hierarchy of football, of every sport,
right.
Because people come on holiday here, and there's a big community of sports people. So it will appeal very much to that community.
Sure.
But I have to say, it was super relaxed. The facilities are first class.
Right.
Beautifully done out. TVs everywhere.
Right.
Golf simulators, you name it. It's a proper sporting venue.
Ah, right, okay.
And I'll give you an example. Something like their Dolce. It's called a Dolce Vita pizza.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a normal pizza. It's like a pudding.
Oh, right.
And it was to die for.
Right.
It was absolutely superb. I've never had anything like it. So if you go to La Sala Clubhouse, it is the Dolce Vita pizza.
Okay.
I recommend it.
Okay. I think you should be getting a little commission for that plug there, Sarah. I'll talk to them.
I don't. How can I say? If something impresses me, Bill, it really impresses me.
Sure.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, I quite understand that. Sometimes you go to places and you're not quite sure how it's going to be, and you get very pleasantly surprised by the place, the service, in this case, the food, the company, and you just think that's a good experience.
Exactly, that's exactly what it was. I mean, I would say that I went more for my husband and the friends that we went with than I did for my interest in football.
Right.
But the whole experience was very pleasant.
Right.
Very pleasant.
Great.
Yeah.
Sarah, we're going to take a break just for a moment. When we come back, we're going to talk about the business that you have now and how you got into that, okay?
Right.
So we've got Rod Stewart and Jules Holland, and we'll be back in a minute.
Ooh, I know, yes, I'm falling. Oh, it's almost like being loud.
Expat Radio. To listen, you don't need to be an expat, and you don't even need a radio.
The best variety of music and conversation.
You're listening to Expat Radio, beaming out across France and around the world.
Welcome back. I'm Bill Anderson, coming live here from the Costa del Sol, with my guest today, Sara Haley, who perhaps came down here because of her love of horses and all things horses, but now is a local businesswoman here in La Cala de Mijas. Tell us about your business now, Sarah.
Well, the business now is completely different, although it's come full circle because the theme of it is fashion.
Right.
Ladies' fashion, as well as a little capsule men's fashion.
Yes.
So, just a quick rewind after leaving school. My mother said to me, I think you need to go and wear more dresses than boots and jeans and joppers. So I'm sending you on a modelling course.
All right.
So that was the start of that journey, which brought me through the ranks in photographic modelling and catwalk. I also did TV commercials as well. So life in fashion happened before I got married.
Right.
So I got that, if you like, I got that under my belt before I came here. And the two subjects between horses and fashion have always alternated ever since I can remember. So, having got married, I missed the modelling when I came here, but I did a little bit because I was with an agency in Boots and Marbella. And then sometimes I used to go fly back home and still work for certain clients because I used to do fittings I was a lingerie fittings model for Playtex, Triumph, and I also used to do fittings for a tailoring manufacturer in London.
Right.
So that all kind of was put together in a mix and put in a box and put away.
Yeah.
Effectively, when we moved here, because the racing took off, and obviously my experience of being in the saddle, I became my husband's assistant, and he was the one with the license, and fashion got put away.
Put to one side, yeah.
And then when the racing finished, when we finished in 2016, because my husband's health changed, he had a heart problem, which thankfully is okay now. And we decided that we didn't, because we'd moved to the south of Spain, we didn't want to move to Madrid, which was the main training centre, a little bit like Newmarket is in England.
Right.
So we didn't want to go and live in a city, and it would have meant that I took the licence, which I could have done because obviously I knew enough to take it over. But my husband was kind of on the back foot, so it just wouldn't have felt the same.
Right.
So we decided to remain in the south, and even though we'd actually got an offer to go back home and train for a big owner back home, but we decided that life in Spain was good.
Right.
So we thought, we'll just bite the bullet and open the box and see what else we can do. So that's how Gucci started. And I literally started with Christmas fairs and selling knitwear, ponchos. Ponchos were the very first thing that I ever sold.
Right.
That's where the name originates from.
Okay. I was going to ask, Mapuche.
Yeah. So, Mapuche, there's plenty to do today.
No, seriously, Sarah, me and Bill, you didn't see Bill there, he just had to do a tap routine for 3 minutes while you went there.
I do apologise.
Like works on the radio, this.
I can play the tap routine back.
Oh, dear. Sorry, listeners.
So, Sarah, we were just talking about Mapuche Moda, which was like your life going back in full circle.
Yes.
Back into the fashion world. And one of the things that Vicky and I have often commented on is that, although La Cala is a great place to live, for a lot of years, you couldn't find things like a clothes shop. It was very hard to find places. We don't have a cobbler's in La Cala. We don't have a dry cleaners. We don't. There's a lot of things that we don't have. So you were probably one of the first clothes shops to open up in La Cala. There are 2 or 3 now, but
in the centre, yes, in the centre. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Great. Okay. In the centre, Bill. I suppose I was the first in the centre, yes, but like you say, there are others now. that have opened, which I think is good because competition is good because it brings more people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, people, if they're looking for something, they're unlikely to go to a village where there's only one shop.
Exactly.
So, if people are looking for, I don't know, if ladies are looking for a dress or something summery, they're more likely to come to La Cala when there are 3, 4 or 5 businesses, so as they can actually look around and see what they want.
Yes, exactly. And if people don't find it in my shop, then I would much prefer to say, well, go and try in so-and-so or so-and-so,
Sure.
And you might find what you're looking for, because that gives them a feel-good factor of the area, which always, to me, is insurance for the people to come back to town.
Yeah, sure.
No?
But, you've got the shop, but you've also incorporated it with the catwalk, haven't you?
I have. Yes. Now,
Yeah.
this is the other part that I'm totally blessed with, in the fact that I work very closely with another restaurant with a similar name, La Scala Marbella,
Yes.
which is in Elveria, and we're in probably our 3rd season now, I think it is, 3rd year, and we host a ladies' lunch and fashion show where it's a wonderful menu, a big menu, and live entertainment, flowing Prosecco, cocktails, and a fashion show.
Right.
And then you can go shopping afterwards.
Uh-huh.
So the bonus is that the professional models that I have, believe it or not, some of them are summer girls that I actually used to work with when I was in the UK, who now
Right.
live here, which is bliss, absolute bliss. I can't believe how blessed I am with that. And the girls are all different sizes, which is, it represents the demographic, obviously, of my client base.
Yeah.
Which is very important because it's wonderful to look at a 6 foot size 8 model and she'll look incredible, but it's actually not quite real.
Yes, sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's nothing to do with my demographic at all. So I'm trying to, if you like, style the models in a way that people in the audience will see something that they can recognise, that will fit them, is their look, and we try and put that story together.
Yeah.
So that happens we start in January, and we have one in January, one in February, and then we go twice monthly, and then our last one for the summer will be next week,
Right.
and always on a Wednesday.
Right.
So that's the day that I'm closed, on a Wednesday. So I'm either buying or else I'm at the show.
Right.
And then we'll have a little break in July and August because it's too hot.
Too hot, yeah.
And then we'll start again at the end of September and go through to Christmas. And the Christmas party is amazing. We usually get about 100, 120 people.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm going to add this bit in, Sarah. I've been to various events organised by charities, and you've also done fashion shows at these events to sort of add something different and something new into these charity events. Yeah.
We have. Yeah, and QDECA is close to my heart, which obviously is the cancer charity here, Age Concern and the Dementia Group, and also the animal charities, because at the end of the day, every little helps, and if everybody can do the bit, it makes such a difference to people's lives.
Yeah, sure. And I'm just looking to see how long we've got. We've got a few minutes, Sarah. I'm going to ask about how fashions change. I'm thinking about year to year now, not decade to decade. To what extent, when you're sourcing material, is it dictated by what someone else decides are going to be the fashions for this year or for this summer? Or to what extent can you decide and get a range of whatever you want?
Well, I would say that, there's an influence. But high fashion isn't my territory.
No.
But there are always clues.
Right.
Within a collection. And depending on the demographic and the age group of that collection, you will always have clues, whether it be a particular colour that's the colour of the year,
right,
or whether or not it's a particular cut. For example, I went into Massimo Dutti the other day, and I found the gentleman's department a lot easier to select from than I did the ladies.
Right.
Because what I do when I'm out and about, I'll go and look at other brands and see where the genres and the influences are coming from,
Right.
and incorporate some of those, because obviously my age demographic is, we're kind of in the middle, but a little lean towards the older lady.
Sure.
But equally, we still have things that are fun, sort of like down in the 30-year-olds.
Yes.
So and when I'm buying, I don't buy any one style. I don't buy too much of, because the rotation, I need fresh stock to go through the shows. So
Right.
the ladies are used to being shown something different.
Sure.
And I would say that I am the classic line, but with a twist.
Right.
That's the best way
Right.
to describe what I do.
Now, my wife loves looking at what you've got in the shop. Her only problem is she's very short.
Believe it or not, I have as many ladies of the shorter size and the shorter height and the small size.
Yes.
They find it as difficult as the taller ladies who are outsize.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So the ones
Yeah.
in the middle are they're fine. They're they don't have that difficulty. But such as Vicky and some other clients that I have are the outsize. Yeah, it is a problem. It's not easy,
Sure.
and sometimes off the peg, if you like, doesn't always consider that.
Right.
So when I go shopping, because I've had the fittings experience way back when, I can sort of identify, well, that'll fit that shape,
Yeah.
that'll be all right for that height, and actually, yeah, we've got it covered.
Sarah, I'm terribly sorry, but our time is up. We've one or two technical problems today, but these things happen. That's not your fault. No, these things are out with all of our control. But can I just say, it's been lovely speaking to you today. Maybe we'll organise another time to talk about fashion or something, because it's a topic that interests everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you for asking me, and it's been a pleasure, Bill, as always.
Thank you. Great weekend to everyone. Thanks to all those who've been listening in, and we will be back next week. Take care, everyone. Great weekend.